So we did this first hour, and it was kind of a fun little exercise with our kind of the end of our preteen years as a church, in our 12th year. It was just like, just wanted to, and I know we're not like an audience participation kind of crowd, and you don't have to participate, but even if you do kind of this, and just kind of hold it there so I see. Who, if you were like part of our church in 2013, 14, or 15, are you here? There's a few of us here, right? How about like 16, 17, 18, 19, like you remember Tabrizi's, but you might remember moving into this community, like yes, there's some of us here, right? Did anyone jump into our church in 2020, 21, or 22? God bless you, man. Oh, those were special times. And then just 23, 24, 25, like the past couple of years, right? I don't know if you were looking around or you were like, make no eye contact with me, and I will make no eye contact with you, and you didn't want to violate the invisible pact. But like what I hope that you would have seen is that there is a community, a pretty wide cross-section, in fact, of people that have been part of this church for many years, people that are just jumping into this church the past couple, and if you're new here, I think when you walk into a room, you're like, I'm the only new person, and you're not. You're really not. And so as we kind of celebrate the 135th year of a church being present on this corner, we thank God for the past 12 years, but what does it mean to take whatever those cool moments of history and whatever fun trivia there is about that stuff, but we go, man, what is God doing now, and how can we be part of a community that celebrates the heart of the prodigal, right? Which is kind of what we're dealing with the past couple of weeks. So, if you were of European descent, from 1608 to 1778, there was a red clay hill about a mile that way that you would have maybe called John Smith's Hill. Because John Smith was exploring the Chesapeake and was like, oh, there's a red clay hill there, with a Virginia accent, right? And that's what it was till 1778, when there was a thing that happened. In December of 1778, the Maryland colony became the state of Maryland, right? The ratification of to the Maryland General Assembly of the Constitution to the state of Maryland, and then there were festivities that originated in Fells Point. A guy by the name of Commodore Joshua Barney, maybe you know Barney Street, Revolutionary War hero, was like, hey, I've got this 15-foot ship called the Federalist. Let's send it across the harbor over to like the Southwest Basin. And people were like, okay, you're a Revolutionary War hero, sure. And 4,000 revelers kind of make the journey, and it builds up as we go, and from Fells Point over to this clay hill. And there's a party with, going up the hill. There's 500 pounds of ham. There's 1,000 pounds of beef. There's 15 barrels of beer, 240 gallons of cider, 9.5 gallons of peach brandy, all for the tab of 200 pounds sterling, plus a $1.10 surcharge for the parties that be to carry that up the hill, which I think they got ripped off. If you've ever had to carry anything up Federal Hill, come on, man. Like, I've unloaded chairs, and I've been like, you owe me $1.10, and then some, right? And there's just a big feast. There's a celebration, right? That now John Smith's Hill, that red clay hill, is Federal Hill, right? And there have been other instances along the way that have kind of affirmed that name, but the reason why it's called Federal Hill, and not that place where you proposed to your friend, and nor that place where you got your picture taken with like a background of the city, is because there was this intersection of a big feast meal that it included Revolutionary War heroes and celebrants with a bigger message. And when I think about the transcendent meals of your life, like what made a good crab cake, that was tasty, kind of a memorable, transcendent experience, it's probably that same intersection, right? What we ate, who we ate it with, and what it was we were celebrating. It was kind of that Venn diagram of what makes like, man, that was good, to like, I still think about that banquet chicken 25 years ago, right? And that's kind of what we want to think about today. We've been looking at the same text, the passage of the prodigal, for 4 weeks now. And we've done kind of a unique thing. We've looked at the text from the perspective of the different people Jesus talks about in the text. So we looked at the Father in week 1, and the essence of like God's love, evidenced through the love of the Father. In week 2, we talked about the younger brother coming to his senses and how the message to the younger brother is not get yourself together, get yourself figured out, and then maybe if you've been a good boy, you get to come home, but just come to your senses, come home. Like the gospel is, come home. And then last week we did this thing where we looked at the older brother, this guy who doesn't love the idea of there being a party. Like it's not fair that you throw a party for this joker and you don't even give me goat, let alone a fattened calf. And today we'll look at the kind of the visual of the feast, particularly through the lens of the people hearing the words of Jesus. The audience of people, the religious leaders who are hearing a challenge to these baseline narratives that they've absorbed about the kingdom of God. To tax collectors and sinners about the baseline narratives they've absorbed about what they think the mission of Jesus and the words of Jesus are about, and how this feast encourages and challenges a different perspective than the baseline default setting that they, and by proxy us, are all bringing into this room today. So we'll look at this through the lens of kind of what I said earlier. We'll look at it through the lens of the meal. We'll look at it through the lens of the guests, particularly how they are invited. And we'll look at it through the lens of the greater message at hand, okay? So Luke 15 is where we're going to be. This idea of the feast, the fattened calf. I'm not trying to speak down to you or tell you about biblical stuff that you've heard a million times, but you are very acquainted, whether you eat meat or not, with it being like a present reality in like American culture, right? If you want beef, you can get beef. You have to pay for it, but you can get it. And you can get it pretty readily. And it doesn't require sort of, massive sacrifice. But in the first century, the fattened calf, the choice menu here is a pretty extravagant thing for the nature of a celebration like the one the Father is throwing, right? Doesn't this seem to you like if there's an impromptu like return and there's a reorientation of like, wait, the Son's back? Okay, we got to have a talk. Someone order some pizzas. Let's get some 2 liters and let's just kind of set up a table and like figure this out. To me, if it's my tab, it's a pizza and 2-liter thing. And I don't know if I'm going like pizza to Joey. I might just go Domino's. Like I might just go like, hey, we got to do something quick. We didn't have the budget for like extravagant New York style kind of vibe, right? But we go here to the fattened calf, like the choicest, most reflective of the wealth and the extravagance that the Father has. Why? Because the son who looked at him and said, I wish you were dead, give me my give me my share of the estate, comes back. Now that is supposed to be provocative. It may not be provocative to you, but I assure you, to the audience of Luke 15, the tax collectors and sinners that were gathering to hear Jesus, like they resonate with the image. To the Pharisees, they resonate with this image. And to both of them, it challenges a default setting. To the tax collectors and sinners, that the default setting is that like the way you find life is to go down a path of self-discovery, you have a little bit of fun, and boy, if you just qualify God from that, you're probably written off forever, but that's okay as long as you kind of find your path. To the older brother, right, to the Pharisees, hey, the way that you find life is that you follow the rules and you do the right things because you might need to call in a favor with the big guy someday, right? Like you might have a job thing that's a little uncertain and you might have a medical test that you're not so sure about and you might need to call in that favor. And it'd be really good to have a resume of like, you did some stuff that the Father was into. And this feast, it blows the paradigm. It blows the baseline settings for everyone that's listening to it. And may it do the same for you. May it challenge your baseline assumptions about what it means to be loved by God, right? If you're the person in the room that was like, I'm not so sure I should be here because like lightning's gonna strike the place if I do, if I show up. This story says, no. Like, not only are you not going to get struck by lightning, that the father in the parable is like killing the fatted calf to say, I just want you to come home. There's not 73 terms and conditions you have to agree to. Just begin with coming home. You've gone to some weird places, you've squandered some things. Yes, I get it, you got some regrets, but begin with coming home. That challenges perhaps a narrative that you've absorbed in yourself today, right? About how you've carried your life, the things up to this point, if you're in the midst of a quarter-life crisis, right? Like the love of God, it wants to speak to and encourage those baseline narratives, but also the narrative of the older brother. The narrative that's like, well, only the people who blank get to come to that kind of feast. And to the older brother, right, who doesn't walk in. Did you catch that? Like, I'm not going to a party if so-and-so are going to be there. To say, hold on, not so fast. Not so fast. It's a provocative thing. There's a 2nd century satirist by the name of Lucian of Samosata. Lucian of Samosata was very Roman, loved the way of Rome, and thought it was silly, this Christian thing. He thought that the Christians were people that had just fallen into the hands of charlatans, were gullible, and were just like looking for a group of people that could like be easily ripped off. And that was his perspective, right? And maybe you have some thoughts there about his perspective. But one of the things that he just could not get his head around, that's central to this text, is that the people who were not actually related to each other related to one another as brothers. Like, you're not related, you have no obligation to other people. Why not just milk Rome for all that it's worth and take care of your family? Why not? Seems like a good way to live. That's how Lucian thought people should live. And so the way of Jesus made no sense to him. The way of, wait, there's people that squandered wealth that you're letting back into the feast, you're killing the fatted calf for. People that relinquished and walked away from the idea of being a son, you're gonna let come back and not just be a son, but be a brother. And like, he's gonna relate to the older brother. Yeah, I'd have beef too. Justin Martyr, whose last name was not Martyr, until he was in fact martyred, said this about like what it meant to embrace the way of Jesus in relation to the way he used to see things before, just as a person kind of walking around the midst of the empire. We who used to value the acquisition of wealth and possessions more than anything else now bring what we have into a common fund and share it with anyone who needs it. We who used to hate and destroy one another and refuse to associate with people of another race or country now, because of Christ, live together with such people and pray for our enemies. Like Justin Martyr's words, kind of make the text pop, right? Like that there are people that are diametrically opposed in their worldview being told, the fatted calf is for you. Come in and celebrate. There are revelers going, hey, I'm here for the fatted calf. Can I get a little slice of that? There's neighbors and looky-loos and weirdos, they're probably down the street that are like, can I get some of that? Medium rare, please. And probably leave some kind of like comment about how it wasn't done enough and whatever, that are invited to say, dance, celebrate. Why? Because this is what the kingdom looks like. This is who the kingdom's for. These groups of people that should not be invited to are not just invited, but are made sons again. This is the gospel. This is the good news. This is the picture of the feast. And may it challenge your default setting. May it challenge that part of you that goes, man, lightning would strike this place. if I walked in this room. May it challenge your default setting if it's lightning would strike this place if they walked in this room. Because the love of God is inviting and unwinding a new kind of family, a new way of understanding what it means to belong to God. So that's the essence of the meal, and the fatted calf kind of points to that. But then, and it counters our narratives. But it also, the invitation says something, doesn't it? I mean, you know this. There's a distinction today. If someone on the way out's like, hey, we're doing this thing, and everyone's invited, you'd be like, all right, well, I had plans, and so everyone's invited, so I will not be missed, because everyone else is invited too, and certainly everyone else is going to show up, and I don't have to attend. But that's different, isn't it? Right? Those of you who like a very slim afternoon schedule are like, yes, that's exactly right. You know it's very different, though, when someone, about anything, goes, hey, we're doing this thing, and it would really mean a lot to me if you were there. You're like, oh, come on. Now I got something on the calendar, right? Why? Because it's personal. It's personal. We say this a lot, when we talk about, like, helping our neighbors, kind of find and follow Jesus, that, like, we can do marketing and we can do some things that are helpful for people knowing when our service times are and a website that has things spelled correctly and things of that nature. But nothing will replace the power of someone going, hey, this was really helpful to me. I'd love for you to join me sometime. Like, there's power in that. That's what the father does, right? He goes to two sons who are throwing their own kind of spiral and goes to where they are and says, hey, we're going to throw a party, right? To the younger brother who's unraveling maybe how he's going to present to his dad a case to be made a hired hand again. He goes to that spiral. He meets the son in that spiral, defying kind of a patriarchal norms of the first century. There's an image Tim Keller gives of an old man pulling up his robe and running, which to the neighbors would be laughable. The first century man looking like a fool so that he can invite his son to the feast. But did you catch this too? The other brother who's like outside the feast, like the father, if we get the order of events correctly, seems to leave the party or the preparations of the party, the music, the dancing, maybe it's just a sound check, to go to where that son is and meet him in his tantrum. And if the first century patriarchal rules apply to a son saying to his dad, I wish you were dead, I want my share of the estate, they also apply to an older brother who says, no thank you, I'm not coming to your stupid party. And the roundhouse kick to the head that was, appropriate for the patriarch to give the younger brother is also appropriate for the patriarch to give to the older. But what does he do? He begs him, please, the son of mine is dead and is alive again. He's lost, but he's found. Like, don't miss it. The essence of this invitation, that you are invited, but also they are invited. Hold on. They're going to be here too. And that sits different, doesn't it? Because they're going to be there, and then I'm going to have to think about what it means for them to be here and me to be here. But like the essence of like, hey, we need each other in God's kingdom and God's heart to like encourage and challenge us both to understand what it means to come to the table as sons and daughters. And may we be a people who go to where the people are, yes, but maybe also understand that the invitation isn't just for the people that look like us, think like us, get down like us, but for the people that we're also like, I'm not coming if they're there. And I've been trying to wrap my mind around how to make sense of the past 30 days and what to talk about and how to talk about it. I don't have a robust answer that you could slap on an Instagram graphic and would make us all feel warm and cozy and encouraged. But I do know this, that like the way the world tends to work is that younger brothers tend to find other younger brothers and talk about how stupid older brothers are. And older brothers tend to find other older brothers and tend to talk about how stupid the other brothers are. And then algorithms and memes like sort of reinforce those spaces. And if the Church of Jesus Christ is going to offer anything to a moment where the love of Jesus Christ is often being co-opted for other purposes, we have got to be a people that embody this feast, who come to the table as younger and older brothers, who see the younger brother and the older brother in ourselves, and are graciously walking and unwinding other ways of understanding, other narratives of kind of understanding where we thought life was found in light of the feast. And that, easier said than done, right? Like I can say that into a microphone. That doesn't mean I want to do it. And it doesn't mean it's easy to do. I think we need this kind of third reality, right? To let the message of this parable challenge and encourage us in light of the idea that God is moving towards both and trying to help them both understand the nature of his character, neither of them understand completely, and to make space for the feast. But in this case, the feast, yes, is there music? Is there dancing? Sure. But here's just the practical reality. And I was thinking about this like through the realm of nostalgia. I have participated in many of your weddings as a guest, but they're doing a thing. I get to observe things in a way that you don't, which means I get to see like the people that are just there to party. And I get to see the people that are there, like, and your wedding is challenging for them because they've recently lost somebody. And sometime over banquet chicken, we talk about that. Or the people that, like, don't really want to be there, or they had to overcome some family tension to stay at the table, passive-aggressive side eyes. Like, is there reveling? Is there music? Is there banquet chicken and the cha-cha slide? Oh, you bet there is. But there's also complicated feelings. So do not miss that this feast and this reveling and this dancing is not the Father's invitation to the Son that says, hey, yeah, I know you followed the rules. Shut up and have a cookie. Behave yourself. It's sort of a way to say, come to the table and process that through the lens of this vision I'm giving you. So maybe you're here today and you are really frustrated and life is really heavy and hard and you are a federal worker and you're like, I don't want to party today. Thank you very much. The message of the feast is not shut up and have a cookie. Get on board with what we're doing. It's to say, how does this feast meet you? And how does it move you? Both toward the love of God, but toward the love of others, right? How does, if you are the younger brother, okay, there's not 75 terms and conditions to agree to get this robe and this ring and this sonship, but it doesn't mean that there's nothing to figure out. It doesn't mean that there's no shame to process. Did you ever just lived for a moment in the path of some regrets of the past? Did they ever find themselves in your present tense, or am I the only one? To what the love of God means, to the thing that I did 10 years ago, to the thing that I did last week, to the thing that I did last night is another thing that we're processing when we come to the feast. Right? To live with that ring and that robe and that restoration when I mess up again. The feast is a space where reveling and wrestling take place. And they continue. And what it means to be a church for the city is not just to be a church that's here when the Ravens win the Super Bowl, though we were one time here when the Ravens won the Super Bowl, which is really cool. And it's not just to be here when terrible things are happening in the community and we respond in word and deed and with food and help. It's to create space like this one to say, how does the community of God's people live differently in the space and time of 2025? How do we embody this feast as a visible church in the moment that we find ourselves in. And how does the Foundry do that in our 12th year? Rather than argue about how effectively we did it in our 8th year. I'm so grateful for you. And I'm so grateful for this space to be on this journey with you, to say, how do we make much of Jesus in the moment that we're in? How do we let the feast challenge us, encourage us, help us move closer to the love of God, but also to the love of one another, right? How does it meet us in our tears? How does it meet us in our anger? How does it meet us in our reveling and our celebration? How does it meet us in our gratitude and how we carry victory? How does it meet us in all of those moments? And how do we come to the feast together? Jesus, in gathering a group of people that had very different viewpoints on how the world was supposed to work, at the end of his earthly ministry, takes a piece of bread and breaks it, takes some wine and pours it, and says, hey, this used to be about some other things, but you're going to do this now in remembrance of me. And at the moment, I don't think they really got what it is they were doing, But some time later, a bloody cross, an empty tomb, shows, this picture, this feast, is actually a reflection of this Luke 15 feast. We take communion at the Foundry not because there's something magic in these little gluten-free crackers. But if your life looks anything like mine, to be tangibly reminded of the presence of God in our story, when you've got the rage and contempt of the older brother or the waywardness of the younger, or maybe a little bit of both in your spirit today, to know that God has moved present, moved near you, that the places where you might hold contempt for others, contempt for yourself, the blood of Jesus is forgiven, restored, is walking with you. And in the craziness and nonsense of the moment you find yourself in, is in you and walking with you who are followers of Jesus. In the confusion, messy madness of the moment, may we receive this invitation today. We can't achieve it, but we can receive it. And receiving communion is just your little way of saying, meet me in that space. Help me to receive even 1% of this today. Trusting that God will. Let me pray for us as we enter this time. God, as we try to think about the implications of the feast, today I feel more like the older brother. Some days I feel more like the younger. I got a whole lot of both, and I'm not the only one. May your love continue to move toward us. May your feast continue to haunt us in a good way, not from the place of fear and contempt, but from a place of invitation, so that we might receive it for the first time or for the millionth time where we are today. Thank you for your love for us in the name of Jesus. Amen.